You probably believe the past is gone, not metaphorically gone, actually gone. Yesterday happened and then it vanished like a light switched off behind you. That idea feels safe, clean, almost comforting. It lets you move forward without dragging anything heavy along. But I want you to notice something uncomfortable. Nothing in physics ever says the past has to disappear. Not once, not quietly, not hidden in a footnote. We just assume it does. We walk around as if the universe is constantly erasing itself behind us, frame by frame, leaving only a thin slice called no. And because it feels right, we never ask whether that's actually allowed. Here is the problem. Physics doesn't know what no is. It doesn't recognize it. It doesn't protect it. If you take the laws seriously, really seriously, then the past isn't something that was. It's something you've stopped interacting with. And that's a very different statement, because if the past never disappeared, then your intuition about time isn't just incomplete, it's lying to you. And once you see that, it becomes hard to feel comfortable inside a moment ever again. Imagine this as carefully as you can. You're standing in a room. Nothing special, a chair, a wall, a clock ticking somewhere you're not looking at. Now imagine that every single detail of this room, the air molecules, the light bouncing off the wall, the position of your body gets written down perfectly, not symbolically, literally every particle, every motion, every tiny vibration. Now the clock ticks once. According to your intuition, the previous moment is gone, deleted, replaced. But ask yourself, replaced by what? Nothing physical happened to destroy it. No explosion, no collapse, no mechanism you can point to and say, that's where the past died, so let's make this sharper. Imagine a second observer, someone who doesn't share your sense of time. They're not watching moments pass. They're looking at the entire room, including yesterday all at once, the way you'd look at a map. From their point of view, yesterday isn't behind you. It isn't fading. It isn't archived. It's just elsewhere. Now here is where it starts to get uncomfortable. Nothing in physics forbids that observer. No law objects. No principle steps in and says, you're not allowed to see that. The only thing stopping you from seeing yesterday is that you're built to move one way through this structure, like a needle dragging across a record, mistaking the music for motion. Let's push it further. Imagine freezing everything right now. Not stopping time, just stopping you. The room doesn't blink out. Yesterday doesn't crumble. There's no pile of discarded moments on the floor. Everything simply is. And when you unfreeze, you don't return to the present. You just resume interacting with one thin slice of a much larger whole. Here is the self-insert part, and I want you to feel it. If someone asked, where were you 5 minutes ago, you'd answer easily. But if the past were truly gone, annihilated, that question would be meaningless. You'd be pointing to something that no longer exists. Yet physics treats that moment with the same seriousness as this one. Same rules, same structure, same legitimacy. So the question quietly shifts. If the past still fits perfectly inside the laws, and nothing ever removes it, then what exactly convinced you it was gone? And more importantly, what else have you been confidently throwing away? Just because you stopped touching it. At this point, your intuition starts reaching for familiar tools. It usually grabs one of two ideas. The first is energy. You think surely the past is gone because the energy moved on. Moments pass, energy flows forward, and whatever was back there gets used up. But that doesn't work. Energy doesn't belong to a moment. It doesn't carry a timestamp. Physics doesn't label energies as past or present. It just tracks where it is and how it's arranged. If energy leaving a moment were enough to destroy it, then empty space would constantly erase itself, and it doesn't, so intuition tries again. This time it reaches for motion. You feel yourself moving through time, like walking down a road, leaving footprints that fade behind you. That feels right. It feels obvious. But motion only makes sense if there's a background you're moving through. A fixed reference, something standing still while you pass by, and physics quietly refuses to give you that. There is no universal clock watching you go by. No master timeline sitting outside the universe keeping score. Every observer carries their own sense of time stitched to their motion. Once you notice that, the idea of leaving the past behind starts to wobble. Behind what? According to which clock? Your intuition wants a single answer. Physics gives you a network of answers, none of them privileged. And that's the low point, because now you're stuck. The past fits the laws. The present isn't special. Motion doesn't explain deletion. Energy doesn't explain disappearance. All the comfortable explanations you've leaned on quietly, your whole life fail at the same time. And when intuition fails completely, it usually means only one thing. You're not misunderstanding the universe. You're misunderstanding your place inside it. So we need a different way to think about this. Not a better intuition, just a less misleading one. Start with something familiar. You don't feel confused about space. You know you're not everywhere at once. You know that places you're not standing in still exist. The chair across the room doesn't disappear when you look away. It's just not where you are. Physics treats time the same way. That sentence usually sounds harmless, but if you let it land, it's deeply unsettling. Because it means time isn't something that happens to the universe. It's something the universe is extended through. Space isn't a stage where things appear and vanish. It eats a direction you can point to. Time is also a direction, not a flow, not a river. A direction. Once you accept that, a lot of confusion quietly evaporates. You're not watching moments pop into existence and die. You're moving along a particular direction in a larger structure, the same way you move north instead of south, or left instead of right. Now here's the next uncomfortable step. You are always moving through time at the same total rate. That sounds strange because you feel still, but physics doesn't care how it feels. If you're sitting still in space, all of your motion goes into time. If you start moving through space, some of that motion is redirected, not added, redirected. This is where people usually expect something dramatic forces engines effort. But none of that is required. Motion through time isn't powered. It's allocated, like having a fixed budget. Spend more in one direction, you must spend less in another. This isn't a rule someone imposed. It's a structural constraint. The universe simply doesn't allow any other arrangement. And now we reach the part that quietly locks everything into place. There is a maximum speed, one that doesn't care who you are or how you move. You can redirect motion, but you can't increase the total. That limit isn't about light. Light just happens to sit at the boundary. The real job of that limit is protection. It protects cause and effect from tearing apart. It protects the structure from contradictions. It protects the universe from allowing an event to outrun its own consequences. Once you see it this way, the past becomes unavoidable. If time is a direction, then past and future aren't states of being. They're locations. You don't erase a location by leaving it. You don't destroy a direction by pointing somewhere else. You simply stop interacting with it. That's the sentence people usually resist. Not because it's complicated, but because it's too clean. The past isn't fading. It is not dissolving. It isn't stored in memory like a backup file. It's fixed into the structure the same way yesterday's position in space is fixed. You're just not there anymore. And neither is no, as now isn't a feature of the universe. It's a feature of your experience moving through it. Different observers don't agree on what now means because there's nothing objective for them to agree about. They're slicing the same structure at different angles. No slice is privileged. No slice is more real. They're just different ways of passing through the same thing. This is where the discomfort sharpens. Because if the past still exists as a location, then nothing ever truly leaves the universe. Events don't evaporate. They don't get overwritten. They remain exactly where they happened. You don't carry them forward. You don't drag them behind. You move away from them. And that means something very specific. The universe doesn't update itself. It doesn't refresh. It doesn't advance. It simply is fully laid out while you experience one narrow path through it. The feeling of time flowing isn't evidence of destruction. It's evidence of perspective. And once you see that, the idea that the past I disappeared starts to look less like a discovery and more like a story we told ourselves, because the alternative felt far too heavy to carry. At this point, it would be fair to ask whether this is just a clever story. So let's do something physics likes to do. Let's check whether the universe actually behaves this way. Every time you use GPS, this picture is quietly enforced. Those satellites aren't just telling your phone where you are. They're negotiating time carefully, constantly, and without mercy for intuition. Clocks on satellites don't agree with clocks on the ground. Not because they're broken, because they're moving differently through space and therefore differently through time. If engineers pretended there were a single universal no GPS would drift by kilometers in a single day. No slow failure, immediate nonsense. So instead, the system treats time exactly the way we've been describing it, as a coordinate, not a moment, as part of a structure, not a flow. Nothing is updated, nothing is erased. Different paths through the same space-time simply accumulate different timestamps. And your phone works not because time is intuitive, but because physics refuses to pretend it is. The past doesn't vanish in practice. It stays put. Technology works because we accept that even when it feels wrong. Once you accept this, The universe starts to feel less like a machine and more like a constraint. Nothing is pushing time forward. Nothing is pulling you along. There's no engine hidden underneath reality, doing the work. There are only rules about what is allowed to connect to what. You don't move because time flows. You move because you're not allowed to stop. Not allowed by force, but by structure. The universe doesn't tell events when to happen. It tells them which arrangements are consistent and which ones aren't. That's a very different kind of authority. It means causality isn't enforced by motion, but by geometry. And geometry doesn't negotiate. Here is the unsettling reframing. The past isn't holding on to you. You're simply no longer aligned with it. Nothing has to chase you. Nothing has to decay. Nothing has to be destroyed. Your sense of moving forward is just what it feels like to slide through a fixed landscape where only certain paths are permitted. Freedom doesn't come from forces. It comes from constraints that leave only one direction open. And once you notice that, time stops feeling like something that happens to you and starts feeling like something you are temporarily allowed to witness. Later today, you'll do something ordinary. You'll glance at a clock. You'll remember a conversation. You'll think about something you wish you'd said differently. And it will feel like that moment is gone. But now there's a quiet question sitting underneath that feeling. Gone from where? Nothing in the universe swept it away. Nothing erased it when you weren't looking. You simply moved. Not forward, just elsewhere. And if the past is still there, exactly where it always was, then the present isn't a point you're standing on. It's a direction you're passing through. And tonight, when yesterday feels far away, remember, distance has never meant disappearance.